Today we'll be discussing how players get back into the starting 23 in the AFL. Let's get into it. There are many players in the AFL currently who are playing in the VFL Sandful who are capable at AFL level but are still missing out on selection, and there are many reasons for this and we'll discuss them in this video. So the most important element to this is a player's VFL form, and obviously the VFL form is the best statistical indicator for how a player is performing. It's not at the same level as AFL football, as player quality is lower in the VFL, but it does give an indication about how a player is improving or matching up every week. And statistical data, we all know, is the best objective indicator of performance or how something is trending, and using statistical data to select players is an important part of team selection every single week. Second element to this is resting and management of players. We see many young players and veterans get rested every single week in the AFL, and this provides the opportunity for other players, other fringe players, to get into the side and have their chance to stamp themselves in the starting 23. We're seeing this week that Carlton are resting Lockie Cowan, their debutant from earlier this year, who's played I think maybe 6 games now, and he's due for a rest, so he's now being managed and is being replaced by Brodie Kemp, who is another player that deserves an opportunity at AFL level. Furthermore, Essendon have rested young star Jai Menzie, who was a mid-season draftee last year and has played around 9 to 10 games maybe. And then they've also rested Dyson Heppel, who we all know is a veteran of the club superstar, but with an older aging body, it needs a bit more protection. So he's being managed while Nick Hine, D'Ambrosio and Anthony McDonald, Tip and Woody have been brought in to have their opportunity at AFL level. Richmond have rested Dion Prestia. We all know that he's got a lot of injury issues and resting him does make sense. And many other cases throughout the year will occur where players get managed because of several different reasons that provide other opportunities to other players who can come in and hopefully play a role and show off their skill. Number 3, we have team first attitude, and this has a lot to do with a team's game plan and how their players buy into the game plan. Pressure is one of the most attitudinal aspects of AFL. It takes no skill to apply pressure. All you need is to run and be able to continue running for the entire game to make sure that you can pressure the opposition into turning the ball over or causing them to give your side an advantage. And there are many players who have the most professional attitudes, who play every single week and you don't question it at all. There are also players who have not as good attitudes, and you see them playing in the VFL, and talent wise you'd expect them to be about even, but it's all about having the discipline and being able to be selfless and thinking of the team. We've seen many players come under criticism in the past for being selfish, thinking about themselves. We saw recently Gresham being criticised by the media for not celebrating Caminiti's goal after he was snubbed in the goal square with the handball, but you'd expect a senior player to celebrate with a youngster even when they've been snubbed. It's just part of the team culture. Many media analysts were calling for Gresham to be dropped, and we can see that they had a justified reason for that. Finally, we have AFL team weaknesses, and this is in terms of injuries, suspensions, and just game plan deficiencies in general. We see every single week there are teams that have some sort of problem with their starting lineup. Sometimes it's too short, sometimes it's too tall, sometimes there's not enough speed, not enough skill, not enough class. There's a lot of aspects that come into team selection and team performance, and when you have something that's unbalanced, it causes bad results, and it provides an opportunity for other players to step in that imbalanced players' play. We sometimes see that Carlton go a bit too tall with Tom De Koning as their ruckman, and then also Jack Silvani, Charlie Kerno, Harry Mackay and Mark Pitnet as their tools as well, and sometimes that's just too much. So we've seen that in the past couple of weeks. Carlton have dropped TDK to the VFL, whether that be form or a structural issue. I think it's a structural issue, and it's quite evident that TDK needs to go back to the VFL to help the Blues structure up a bit better with a bit less height. And some examples of this, we have Angus Sheldrick from the Swans coming in this week in place of the injured Matthew Roberts, and the dropped Justin McInerney. We see that strong VFL form can lead to opportunity as well as injury. Angus Sheldrick had 39 disposals in the VFL on the weekend, so has earned his opportunity, and we've seen the same with Max Ramsden from the Hawks this week, who is a ruckman. He's been picked ahead of an off-season recruit, Lloyd Meek, just purely because of his VFL form and the Hawks investing in their youth. So how does this influence St Kilda? We see that there are several players to return. Max King, Jack Billings, Zach Jones, Jimmy Webster, Nick Coffield, Dan McKenzie, Jack Bytel, Marcus Windhager and Jack Hayes. Some of these players are already back from injury, but they are just out of the side purely because of form and balance issues in the team. I've colour-coded the players in terms of how likely I think they will be to enter the starting 23 when they are back. So Max King, I think he's a straight swap for Cordy, and Jimmy Webster is a straight swap for Ben Patton, as we've seen early in the season where Webster comes straight in for Patton. Light greens, we have Dan McKenzie and Marcus Windhager, who would be on the verge of selection. I think Ryan Burns is holding down the wing spot very well, and I think McKenzie probably would have to earn that back with the game in the VFL once he returns. And Marcus Windhager, we know that he's been sub and on the verge of selection every single week, so he's very, very close. With the yellow names, we have Jack Billings, Zach Jones and Nick Coffield. All three of those players have been consistent starters in the past, but injuries have prevented them from playing on a consistent basis. Jack Billings, we saw he returned through the VFL and had a very good performance, but still can't get into the side, so he's going to have another couple of weeks out because there's no VFL this week. And Zach Jones, he's set to return in the next fortnight, and expect him to go to the VFL and try to earn his way back because Hunter Clark has taken his spot in midfield. Nick Coffield, Liam Stocker has essentially taken his spot. When he returns, he'll have to play through the VFL, gain some form and try to displace Stocker as well. And I think the more unlikely inclusions to the team are now Jack Bytel and Jack Hayes. I think Olwins has definitely overtaken Jack Hayes, so Jack Hayes will probably have to spend some time with the VFL. We remember last year where our setup up forward was Tim Membry, Max King and then Jack Hayes, but now that Owens is there as a second ruck, makeshift key forward, I think there isn't a spot for Jack Hayes anymore, so he'll have to earn it back, whether it be through an injury, suspension or just form issues. I think, yeah, it'll be very hard. Even if he performs very well in the VFL, it'll be hard to fit him in unless Owens changes his role to maybe an inside midfielder. And then we have Jack Bytel. We've seen that he's always dominant in the VFL, but just can't get an opportunity at AFL level because of midfield depth in Jack Steele, Brad Crouch and Seb Ross taking those positions, and then also Hunter Clark as well. So it's very unlikely that Jack Bytel will be able to break in, even though he would be performing with good VFL form. And we have the lineup for the St Kilda team here for this weekend against Port Adelaide, and we see here that it's a pretty solid team. There are some deficiencies where players can make way for the returning players. I've highlighted some players here. We have Liam Stocker, obviously an inclusion early this year to take Caulfield's role, and I think he could easily be displaced by Caulfield if he shows some VFL form. Ryan Burns, we know that he's a very hard-working player, but he does lack polish on the wing. He's a good performer, but I think Mackenzie would definitely be an upgrade on him. Mateus Filippo, I wouldn't say he'd get dropped, but I think he'd be managed at some points. And Jack Billings can slot straight into that role. Zane Cordy, straight replacement for King. I think Cordy's held down the fort quite well, but I think King is just a class above, and you can't really expect Cordy to play over King in most circumstances. Jade Gresham hasn't been at his best at the start of this season, and his spot is easily up for grabs. I think Jack Billings can play that role really easily, where you be that full forward X-factor kind of player. He can play through the midfield as well. And then Ben Patton, obviously I spoke earlier about Jimmy Webster being able to be a straight swap for him. So there's plenty of opportunity in this team for the returning players to get back into. Potentially Jack Bytel can try and displace one of the players from the other positions on the bench. And Windhager can obviously replace Filippo if needed, or Gresham. Hayes can replace Owens or Cordy or Membry or King depending on injuries. And Jones obviously can easily fit in the midfield as long as he performs well in the VFL and forces his way in. So there's plenty of opportunity here, and expect a lot of competition for spots when everyone is back fit and healthy. I expect there will probably be more injuries as the year goes on, which will provide an easier opportunity for these returning players to get back into the team, but we all know that anything can happen, and the best thing to happen would be that everyone is fit and challenging for spots, which holds everyone accountable to good performances and hopefully better team results. Thank you for watching this video about how AFL players can get back into the best 23. Make sure to drop a like on the video, make sure to leave a comment what you think about the analysis, make sure to drop your opinions down in the comments, what other elements can factor into players getting selected for AFL footy, and make sure to subscribe to the channel for more St Kilda and AFL content in general. I'll be ramping up the AFL general content in the future, so make sure to stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys in the next video.